All right, welcome back. We moved from Sunday to Monday. Jerry was busy, Trevor was busy. Trevor's black screen. I think we lost Trevor. Of course. He was a black screen, and now he's gone.
What?
He was in here for like 10 minutes before this thing started. And now he's gone. Shocker. I have no idea what happened there.
Guns a-blazing, baby. Let's go.
What a great way to start this thing off. So today we'll dive into Aaron Rodgers officially signs with the Steelers. Stanley Cup playoff game is currently happening right now, Game 3. Pacers, Thunder. And then we'll talk about the new NCAA rulings where, the student athlete is now gone. It's gone forever and to never be called again. So the first topic we'll jump into here is Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers. This has been talked about for quite some time of, Aaron Rodgers is going to maybe go to the Steelers. It's been some people said he had some personal things he needed to work out or whatnot. I don't know how true that was, but that was kind of the talk. And, he did sign with them last week, signed a 1-year deal worth $13.65 million. I think it can go up to $19 million. All in all, I think it's a good signing for the Steelers. He's going to be better than Mason Rudolph would be. You can't debate that. There's no one out there that would debate that, I think. So, look, is he an upgrade from Russell Wilson last year? Maybe, maybe not. He had a decent year last year, 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns. The Jets weren't good, but he had a decent year. The biggest question I have is, does this get them over the hump of can they finally win a playoff game?
Maybe. Like, definitely maybe. I know it's a really simple and non-controversial take to be like, they could, right? You don't come here for that. But, like, it's really hard to prognosticate a 40-year-old quarterback who is still coming off the Achilles injury. Like, granted, he played last year, but it's like, this is not the Aaron Rodgers we're used to even just 2-3 years ago. And the Steelers do the same thing every year, which is they just get above 500. They make the playoffs. You don't know how they did it. They won some weird game with voodoo magic, so Mike Tomlin could keep the streak going, and then they lose in the playoffs. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is your turning point like you once thought he would be. But what this does tell me is that people looked at Tom Brady's tenure because he was a very similar spot, right? Look at that. Trevor's back. He has showed up. He is alive.
Did you have to go back to the bathroom again or what?
No, bro, so, like, Jerry was, like, finishing a sentence, and then my phone, like, the audio just repeated, like, said, like, sounds good. So, like, it repeated sounds good an infinite amount of times. I could not get it to stop doing it. I was, like, closing the app. I could not figure out what was happening. So then I turned the volume all the way down, and then turned the volume all the way up, and he was done repeating himself. And then you guys come back, and I can't hear you at all. So my brother is currently tutoring a high school child. I ripped his computer from his hands and brought it up here so I could do this podcast.
That's right. That's what you should do. We're not, we may be a child show, but if you can't get your grades up on your own, that's not our problem.
Right. That's what I'm talking about, baby.
I just thought Trevor was doing a darkness retreat, kind of like Aaron Rodgers is famous for,
before the show. You went black there for a second. Nobody knew what was going on.
Bro. Dude, I have my phone. The AI, dude, I'm telling you.
Yeah, the AI.
It's learning.
The chat GPT was trying to get Jerry's voice.
Yeah, dude, it was mimicking it.
No, the scam call, my voice is going to do numbers. Oh, man. I'm scamming so many grandmas and not even know it.
That's good.
No, it's not. It's terrible. It's terrible for society and everything else that some hackers will be using my peewee little voice that is still trying to come off of a cough and like, Grandma, the house is in turmoil. I need 20,000 USD right now.
I'm a Nigerian princess.
Yeah, I'm a Nigerian prince. I have a chance for you to make $100,000 right now. Just send me 10,000. Like
he
that's going to be the
voice.
Nigerian,
but I guess so.
That's the voice that will be scamming thousands of people because of Chat GPT.
Yeah,
you're welcome, or I'm sorry, depending on where you go with it.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
And I won't see a dime of it. That's the worst part.
That is a shame. We got to get in with the AI overlords.
Oh man, Trevor's doing darkness retreatments. My voice is being used to scam folks. Like, I think that's the best way to describe an Aaron Rodgers segment. It's just chaotic. It's goofy. You don't know where it's going to go next, and that's probably what's going to happen here. But all you know is that there's going to be a camera tucked away from ESPN in Pittsburgh for the next X amount of months, because he will make headlines doing whatever Aaron Rodgers does. Like, and he's such a good quarterback. He really is. Like, as much as I hate to admit that as a Bears fan, I watched him beat my team basically every year, twice a year, without anything changing. But how much do you get from a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers? If you're asking me, this is like a Tom Brady guy, you might get something out of him. But that was such a one-off that can that magic, repeat itself? That's a really hard question to try to get the answer to. We'll have a better sense of it, but it's hard for me to really feel confident in the Steelers' future in just a 40-year-old guy in general. I get it's a guy who's going to be a Hall of Famer, has all the stats, has the resume, didn't play terribly last year, but it's still hard for me to be like, yeah, he's got it. They'll be fine. But if I'm going to bet anything, they'll still be above 500. They'll beat one team not supposed to and lose to two teams they shouldn't have. Wax, rinse, repeat. Mike Tomlin keeps his job.
Yeah, I mean, it's the problem with this whole deal is with going and, okay, now you're on a 1 year, Mason Rudolph was going to be your quarterback. Okay, nobody believed that. Now you go to Aaron Rodgers. You're just kicking the can down the road of the quarterback situation. And that's the biggest problem because, if you're Mike Tomlin, you haven't won a playoff game in a long time, probably 10 years, close to it. And now you're going to bring in Aaron Rodgers on a team that, you compared the Tom Brady move. This team is not even close to the team the Bucs had, nor the division that they are in. You got to go up against the Bengals. I think I'd take the Bengals over the Steelers at this point. You got the Ravens. I think we'd all take the Ravens. And the Browns have players. They just, we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to look like. So, the Browns could be a surprise team, a surprise team in winning 6 games, So I think it's tough. You just continue to kick the can down the road for an organization that is so highly regarded, just the funkiness that they have at quarterback, but they continue to win, right? Mike Tomlin does it. They trade George Pickens. Now you bring in DK. So they have pieces that they have to mold together. My biggest thing is he's got to get off to a hot start, the Steelers do, with Aaron Rodgers, unlike what the Jets did last year. I think everybody's like, the Jets are going to be fine, and then they struggled to the beginning. So they have to get out to a hot start. If they don't do that, it's going to be a disaster. But, I think, probably 9-8 and a wild card team, and we'll see what they can do in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that this either is one of the most brilliant moves in offseason NFL history with signing a Hall of Famer basically for $13 million in 1 year, or because if I'm not mistaken, there were a couple guys that the Steelers wanted ahead of Aaron Rodgers. I think I heard that they maybe wanted Matthew Stafford at one point and something like that. So, or this just seems like we have nothing else we can do. We've dug ourselves into a corner and now we have to do something. Well, let's go get Aaron Rodgers for a year. So I think it could be either one of those things. So it's super interesting. And I think I have high hopes. Not high hopes, but I think they will perform probably better than we might think they will. But yeah, I think this is a team that goes above 500, like you said, gets into an AFC playoff game, and yeah.
And I'll leave us with this so we can move on because I know we want to get to a lot of things. It's a busy show. What I find so fascinating about the Steelers is they're a team that's pretty content with this. Like the fact that we're all just kind of going, they'll be 9-8, probably losing the playoffs, but they were still good. They are in the worst spot as to be in an organization in general. You're too good to not to tank, rebuild it. You have too many good pieces. Every time you kind of think about it, nope, they win the game they're not supposed to, right? They have the record they're not supposed to, so you can't get a good lottery pick or have a chance, real high in the draft. But you're not good enough to be like, yeah, we're making the run. And we can go back and forth on if Aaron Rodgers is the guy to do it, but we're not confident in it, right? Like that is for Pittsburgh is so frustrating because I think a lot of fan bases are like, we'd love to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're always good. We usually beat these we're supposed to, we always have a competent program. We're not running amok. We're not having a Bears last season where the offensive line's, Swiss cheese. But it's like, that's great and all, but you have nothing to show for it. You just have a couple records that will make Mike Tomlin look great later on, but you have done nothing to improve your quality of life. So I find it fascinating because there's so many other teams. Like, how many other teams in front offices would trade to be in the Steelers spot right now? Is kind of the question I pose that we don't have to have an answer to right now. But they keep doing that thing where they're just going to be good enough. And I know that's got to be frustrating after a certain point. It's great now and all. It's great to not be terrible, but there's nothing to look forward to. Even if Rodgers does good, he's 41. How many more years you get out of him? And that's a really, it's backwards but bleak to be in this kind of just purgatory of NFL success. You're not going to heaven, but you can't even enjoy hell. And supposedly have all the things that are fun there that got you there in the first place.
Yeah, no, you don't want to be in the middle. I think with any team, right? You either want to be the best or the worst. And yeah, Steelers are right in the middle. And yeah, you're in a position where when you draft, it's like, oh, we got an offense and defensive lineman. That's about where we are in the middle of the draft. And they're not historically, they don't trade up for guys. And, they tried the Kenny Pickett experience drafting a first round quarterback and it didn't work out. So, I don't know, but yeah, you don't want to be in the middle. The Steelers are definitely in the middle, but yeah, time will tell on this one. I think he's got to be fully bought in. There's a lot that comes with him, but is he talented? Without a doubt. But I think if anybody can handle a person like Aaron Rodgers, I think it's Mike Tomlin. I think it is. All right, moving on. Stanley Cup final is tied 1-1. So both the games have gone into overtime so far, which has been pretty crazy. I think this shows just how balanced and how good this series is going to be. The Oilers won the first game in overtime, and then Florida won the last game in overtime. Game 3 is currently going on right about now. Look, this series is going 7 games. If you like competitive sporting events or just anything when it comes to playoff environments of anything, these games are going to be it. Florida had a lead in the first game, and they usually don't let those up, but you're playing a team like Edmonton. They storm back, kind of the same with the Oilers in game 2. Florida kind of hangs around, storms back. They went into 2 overtimes in game 2. Brad Marchand made a goal that I don't even think he knew how it went in. He had a breakaway and was being chased down from the back, and basically he tried to do like a reverse with the puck, like a hesitation move. And the defender hit him, and the puck just like kept sliding, and it faked everybody out. It faked him out. It faked the goalie out, and the puck ended up going in the net, and they end up winning that. So, it's one of those things where this series is just going to be competitive. It's going back to Florida now, so that will be interesting to see the dynamic. But I will say, there's one thing that's funny. The NHL probably has the funniest, like, for a team that loses in overtime, they just like the team that loses just automatically just goes back to the locker room. It's like the funniest thing ever. Like, you go from like being so intense into a game and like being so bought into a game, and then as soon as you see the puck in the net, you just like turn around and they walk back, and the other team's just jumping up on the ice. All the fans are leaving. It was like, I don't know if there's like such a high of a high and such a low of a low, but it's very funny to see how like you go from like, oh, we could win this, oh, breakaway goal, all right, back to the locker room like that, like 30 seconds. Like everybody else, like when in like a game like that happens, they're like, oh, we may go talk in center court or like maybe talk to the fans or someone wants to talk. No, they just go straight back to the locker room. It is legitimately the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, like Caleb, you've covered this really well, so we'll probably keep it short because there's not much more to say. This is playoff hockey at its best. It's chaotic, it's fun, it's fast. Like the first half of the second game, you have like 5 goals, back and forth every 2 minutes. It felt like any shot was going in. Then you have like 2 periods of almost nothing. The empty netter, I forget who was empty net. They score that final goal, tie it up. We go to overtime again. A long 2-period overtime for game 2, right? Like you can't ask for much more from any sport, but this is peak playoff hockey. It is fast. You have these one-on-ones in multiple situations. I feel like they could turn the game. No goal, right? Great saves from goalies. In return, some wacky shot just finds its way in, including the ending goal that the keeper gets megged. That's nuts. And I know that's more of a soccer term, but like to go between the legs of a guy in the second OT instead of having this one-on-one opportunity, that's so wild. And then of course you have this deflation of just having these other guys just walk off. All right, fine, we're done. Probably someone's gonna fall asleep in the locker room after how long that game went. But it doesn't get much better. It's everything you can ask for. And like I said, this is going 7. And those are the 2 best words in sports. Game 7. And how many more overtime games is what I'm going to keep an eye on, because that will make this series so interesting. Legs are going to have to give at some point, even with all these day breaks. You keep going OT, something's going to give on somebody's side.
Yeah, no, the other thing I will say about the hockey series, it's so funny. Like NBA Finals Game 1 happened, and they had like 3 days off. Hockey had 1 day off. They're playing again. So it is so funny to see the difference between the 2 sports and kind of how they handle things. So, yeah, if they continue to go deeper into these games, overtime or whatever, even if it gets to a Game 7, like guys already play in the playoffs banged up. You know, you might have guys that are legitimately injured playing. So that will be interesting to see. But moving on to another final series that is now tied 1-1 as well. The NBA Finals is tied up. The Thunder won last night. The Pacers, that Game 1 game was one of the craziest games I've ever watched. I legitimately thought the game was over in the fourth quarter. I was like, this game's over. It's a lot to a little. And then, like, the Thunder don't give up those leads. This season they haven't, at least. They've kind of blown teams out. Some people are kind of comparing them to the UNLV teams of the 80s and 90s, where it's kind of like they just kind of blew teams out, and maybe you get them in a close game, and maybe you can win it. Tyrese Halliburton, you know, I continue to talk about how people call him the most overrated player in the NBA coming into the season. Like, that is, you can't even say that. This guy is currently the clutchest player, I would say, in the NBA. And historically, he's getting to the point where you can put him up against almost anybody. They get the rebound. It's the most dysfunctional final play I've ever seen in my life. The most dysfunctional. Like, nobody knows what to do with the ball. He finally gets it, and he's just does what he does and puts the ball in the net. And then last night, yeah, they kind of just got steamrolled. The Thunder did what the Thunder have done all year. So this has been interesting. No one's really gave the Pacers a shot. They go in, they win Game 1. Now what happens? But it has been very fascinating to watch how the Pacers just continue this role of nobody believes in this, nobody thinks we can do it, and boom, they win Game 1. And then it's like, yep, okay, Game 2, that's exactly how it was supposed to go. So now how do they respond? But no, I think it's been very fascinating so far.
You talked about the NHL probably going 7, right? Like, that was our thing. This game's going 7 series. When we talked about this last week, I said this series goes 7 as well. And I still totally believe that, right? It makes me look real good that they're also tied 1-1, this and that. But it's like, we're going to go back to Indiana now for Game 3 on Wednesday. That's a great environment. The Pacers have been fantastic at home. And that Game 1 has just been so indicative of the Pacers playoffs, which is they're never really out of it. Even yesterday when they were getting steamrolled, they did not look like the better team. You watched the whole game through. And it's not because you were like, oh, yeah, I really want to watch, Wiggins hit another 3 from OKC. It's like, well, what happens if they just hit a couple of shots? And I still don't get game number 1, no matter how many times I look back at it. Not just the comeback, but the amount, like, OKC turned them over. It was like 26-5 until in the turnover battle, which is what Oklahoma City does. They're a great team at getting turnovers. They scored like 11 points off of it. Like, you don't win games being that sloppy, that crazy. But OKC let them hang around in Game 1. Game 2, they didn't. They have a 17-point run in the second quarter. Their lead's about 20. And that's just how crazy a couple points can be in the middle of a game. Because in Game 1, it felt like OKC never really closed them out. Because it was like 10, 12. Every time they got to like 15, there's a quick 5-0 run. That's a 10-point game. Then at the end of it, they slowly etched it away. Miles Turner hits more threes in the clutch than we give him a lot of credit for. Neesmith just chopped up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Looked like he's on the, like the practice court doing like 4 between the legs step back. That's a 2K move, right? Like, his stamina bar is probably low. Hits the 3. It's like it was that slow chip away that leads to that final moment. But it's harder to do when you're down 20. And I think that's the million-dollar question with the Pacers is they have these moments of brilliance, especially in these comebacks, where they just look like the best team in the world. They hit every shot. Tyrese Halliburton's a great distributor. He hits every mid-range floater he ever takes, which is also another point I'll make in a second. But he's hitting all his shots. He's moving the ball around. They do this 4 minutes. They look amazing. But then the other half of the game, it's we just turned the ball over again. Oh, that's a terrible three. Can you make that more consistent? The answer's been no. But they're going to need to if they want to beat this OKC team, because this Oklahoma City responded. And they did so by doing the same thing they did the game before, but instead of letting them hang around, no, we had a 17-point run. That felt different because they had that moment. They never had that in game 1. But we're going to see if they can do it in game 3. This is another great series. Indiana is just a fun team to watch, and they're fast. So if anything, you're going to get a lot of shots.
I don't know if this is true, or I'm pretty sure it's true. But is it true that they don't have no finals anywhere on these guys' courts, or is that just a game 1 thing, or?
Oh, you're getting into the weird niche NBA Twitter argument right now.
This is what people really care about.
Apparently, there has been no
game 1. There was
finals. Yeah, so I didn't know if that was true or not. That's kind of how it was explained to me is it's a small market thing. The NBA doesn't want to support small market teams or whatever. I don't know if it's that, but I thought it was interesting. That is kind of weird to me. Imagine the Super Bowl happening and there was no Super Bowl thing anywhere on the field. Nothing that could tell you it was a Super Bowl. And I know they haven't done the Larry O'Brien trophy thing in a while, where it's in the middle of half court and it's in their logo or whatever. But that is kind of weird that there is no finals anywhere on these courts.
Yeah, I mean, you want to make it different, right? This is different than just from regular. Yeah, there should be, in my opinion. I think the Stanley Cup playoffs, kind of the same thing. They don't really have that on the ice. Edmonton did do a cool thing. I guess you can really only do this in hockey. Is the guys that played in Canada, they went and got ice from their local rinks.
Okay.
And put it into that ice, which that's you can only do that really in hockey.
Yeah.
I don't know if you go get blood from where Shea, played high school at, and maybe cut it out or whatever. But no, yeah, you threw me off with that. But yeah, no, I definitely, no, I agree. I think you get rid of the nostalgia part of it. You need to not saying when I was younger it was better or whatever. But yeah, you do remember those the logos on the jerseys or the thing that I really irritates me, this is not even have to do with the finals, is how, for the All-Star games, they don't wear their team's uniforms. They make them wear a uniform. Yeah. That irritates the hell out of me, because I think that when you play an All-Star game, I want to see you in your team's uniform. I think that's so cool. Home or away, decide whatever.
Yeah.
So this goes right in line with it, where it's this is the NBA Finals. You're trying to market your sport, make this look different, and you don't even put finals on the court. Yeah, and if it is because they don't want a small market, look, you only have 30 teams. You have to expose anyone that you can, and in a wide regional area like that of Oklahoma, you could you need to pull from as many people as you can. I mean. The Thunder were one of the smallest market teams 10 years ago, but they were the most talked about team because they had a big 3, right? The guys that they had. So sometimes it doesn't matter. But no, you have to put NBA Finals somewhere on your court. Yeah, it'd be like the Super Bowl. They just had the NFL Shield in the middle.
Right. And I think it's kind of weird, too, that there's such an emphasis on NBA Cup courts.
Yeah.
Or whatever it's called. It's the court is completely different. But when the finals comes around, there's nothing. I don't know. It could be just kind of a conspiracy theory thing. I am huge on conspiracy theories. Don't even get me started. No, I'm just kidding. I was going to say something never mind.
Love hearing this from the guy who educates our future generations. This is great. But you guys have stumbled into what has turned into both a mainstream and very niche NBA, Twitter / all the weird people who post about basketball in the weird ways, that the pageantry of the finals has not been there. Which is game 1, they had no logos or anything that really showed you. The only major thing that makes you know it's the finals is the gold ticker or score bug. Game 2, they threw in 480p Larry O'Brien animated onto the court.
Yeah, I have a picture
images.
of it. I don't know if you can
Hey,
see
Caleb,
that.
I love you dearly. You know no one can see that. Like,
But they no. So what Jerry's talking about is they did the digital thing where they put the Larry O'Brien trophy and then they would switch it to the finals.
which looked all like the trophies look terrible in my opinion, because like the animated stuff in general doesn't look that good. The finals thing looked all right. But this has been an underlying problem in this series. I think is a really good example of it. The NBA doesn't play up its storylines. It doesn't play up the things that have made this great. This has been an overall great playoffs. We've talked about this a lot. There have been upsets. There's been great basketball. You have star potential, right? Like you have like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Tyrese Halliburton is such a fun character. He has kind of a weird voice, right? He's a guy who has gone back and forth in the league, but has been really good in Indiana, right? He's a great soundbite. He dresses like intriguing. Same with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Like you have things you could build around here. Chet Holmgren's one of the weirdest white boys from Minnesota you'll ever meet. like there's things you could build around here and and appreciate. And I really like the fact you guys brought up the NFL. You know one thing you didn't hear in the NBA finals? You didn't have the starting lineups, right? You don't have that moment where you're seeing the crowd get hyped for the Oklahoma City, starting five. There wasn't any national anthem, right? People gamble on the national anthem for the Super Bowl, right? In return, they didn't even play it. It's just they came into the game, both of them, like it's another regular season game. And that's been a major complaint. And I don't know, like there's ways you solve it, and it's you have to build up every team. That includes your playoffs, but you have to build up those storylines. And there are so many better ways that can be done. But part of the thing about basketball is that you have these players that you could see. You see Tyrese Halliburton. You see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Pick your player. Where like in football, we know Patrick Mahomes sounds like Kermit the Frog, has a weird borderline, like I don't even know what's going on with his head half the time. But he puts that helmet on, he turns into God, right? It kind of was like that weird disconnect that kind of works. Or even Travis Kelce, he walks around, in the nicest suit known to man, shoes that cost more than my mortgage, like in all this. But then he's just 87 on the field. You have these guys that are very front facing. You have to build your characters around them. Where in football, it's kind of almost team oriented. Then you have these star guys, right? But there's a way this could be that it doesn't matter who's in the finals. Like this could be a finals that's branded as two great teams. That could get people in. This doesn't need to be they need New York, they need Boston, they need LA. Like you have two really good fan bases, but you have players that could be very marketable, right? Like that they're not marketing well. And now we're seeing it where they're slapping on the finals logo animated instead of putting it on the court. And that pageantry is missing. It doesn't feel like the finals. You don't have the finals music. The pregame show doesn't feel like it feels like the normal game.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the problem, not with the series completely, but more an NBA general problem. And will that be solved when they go into this new TV deal? I can't guarantee that. And it sucks because this is a really fun matchup. Game one, again, was a great game. Game two, maybe not as much, but still, like, there's a lot of good stuff going on. You can have a lot of great moments, like, then celebrate and have fun. But if you present it like it's a Tuesday game, people are going to respond to it.
Yeah. No, I mean, some of it could be like with how the NBA wants to do it. Some of it could be how ESPN and ABC want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be very, very interesting how, like you come in game one and it's just like, oh, we're in the NBA finals. No, it's not just another game. You got to change it up. You got to make it different. You got to do something. To build the hype around it. The NBA out of all the sports has historically been the best at building the stars of their game. And sometimes people give them pushback of you don't build the league, you build individual stars. And you have a chance in this finals to build these two individual stars in Tyrese Halliburton and Shai. And you're not really doing it. You're just kind of glossing it over. And I think the other thing too, and I don't think the NBA would they probably wouldn't admit this, but when you talk about we need like the New York team versus this team, I think like the MLB World Series kind of hurt last year, where it was like you had the Dodgers and the Yankees. And I think everybody just kind of expects those big market teams for different things. But the NBA, it's a weird sport because in the NFL, like the Kansas City Chiefs have been relevant for the last 10 years, like Kansas City, right? Like a small market team. So it is weird how in different. You shift now to the NBA, and the small market, deteriorates. It's a weird thing, like Green Bay is massive, and it's just weird how it works when you look at the NBA. It could just be an NBA problem. I don't know with the small market thing, but it is goofy how like the NFL can really have high value in small markets, and then the NBA struggles in those small markets.
And I think too, and we'll get off the conspiracy theory train in a second here, but I think too it could kind of show like a hesitancy to move on from the Stephen Currys and the LeBron James and those guys who aren't involved. Not necessarily that the NBA is purposely like not advertising the finals because they don't want these guys to succeed, but like you said, this is a league that's built off of stars, and now you're kind of seeing that. Oh no, we have to start from scratch now because this guy Jokic that we had, who was this European dude who was unstoppable, isn't in the finals this year, and the Boston Celtics aren't around right now. And it's two teams with Shea is an MVP winner or whatever, but these aren't guys that we have like thrown out in front of you like an Anthony Edwards, dude. Every time I turn on the TV, I see an Anthony Edwards commercial. So I don't. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. I just thought that would be an interesting point.
No, it's a thing that these finals just illuminate a problem that a lot of people can keep yelling about. And again, it's that pageantry. Like, when I think of sports and pageantry, I think like the Rose Bowl. It's the first thing I always think of, right? Where you have the special flyover, they have the overhead shot where they show you the crowd, the roses being played out. And I get it, that gets played once a year. Pasadena goes all the way out for it, right? But it's like that presentation, both by like an ESPN or pick whoever, it's there for other sports. And the NHL has also fell victims of this as well. As you said, Caleb, like there isn't anything that makes you feel like you're at a finals broadcast. And what I think the question is like, how do you build up this next generation? Because you don't have a clear number one, right? Like as we're talking about, there are two guys here. Tyrese Halliburton had like 12, 15 points in that game 2. Like Shea's been great. Shea's game is really smooth, but it's not like poster worthy, right? He hits mid-range jump shots. He absolutely cooks people, and he gets these small bouts of separation, but he doesn't talk like Jordan did. Like, yeah, Jordan hit a bunch of mid-ranges, but Jordan also told you I dropped 30 on your head, right? Like Shea doesn't do that. It's like a weird but cool Instagram post and gets like 100,000 likes. It's marketing to different generations. This is a game that is all at the same time. We talk about like the TV ratings, this and that. Like we've said before, the clips there are still going viral, right? The lobs and all this, you're still seeing those on your feed, and it's kind of that back and forth. But the NBA doesn't do a good job, at least, of promoting their big moments, right? Like the Pacers just feel like such a great Cinderella story. The state that loves basketball, right? In 49 other states, it's just basketball. That's literally the thing. That's what everyone says. That's so easy to play up for a team that keeps upsetting other teams and has this guy who, again, Tyrese Halliburton's so easy to market. He really is. He's really likable for the most part. He literally in game 1 does the big old choke, right? Like it's not like he just sits in the corner. It's like, why don't we hear about him more? And this is a team that also had the best record, at least in the Eastern Conference, after the All-Star game. It's not like they just appeared out of nowhere. There's ways this could be done. They've struggled to do that. And it's left us where the finals don't feel like the finals, even though the matchup on the court very much feels like the finals. But everything around it doesn't have that same feeling. It doesn't feel bigger. And that's really, I think, on the NBA. But we were talking about college. We were talking about the Rose Bowl. Caleb, hit me with the next slide here. We're moving. We're rumping.
Well, I was just going to quickly, Luke Hoxie asked, picking for the next 10 years to build a team around, are you taking SGA or Hallie? We'll do that real quick. Who would you guys
SGA.
pick?
That's easy. It's not easy. Halliburton's a really good player. They're about the same age. Shea is just more complete. They're like, this is, you want to talk about not building up your guys. This is a scoring champ, all-star, MVP, West Conference Finals guy, all in the same year. And we don't talk about him like a guy who's done that.
Yeah.
And if it in game 1 and game 2 has been really solid. And he's solid point guard. Halliburton's, I think, a really, really good point guard who's getting the appreciation for what he is. But at times, he kind of steps out, steps in. Shea is both really good at being a center of the offense, while also still moving the offense around. It's not like he needs the ball and it's over. When he gets the ball, he'll find ways to score, but he also moves the ball around. He does all these things. And look at the core around the Thunder. They all benefit from a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And you can say the same about Tyrese Halliburton, but it's hard for you to pick against the guy who's won like every accolade this year over a guy who's had a really fantastic historical playoff run in Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, I think like with Tyrese, it's like playoffs, he's playing amazing. And yeah, that's maybe someone you'd like to have on your team during the playoffs, but he's not doing the things that Shai is doing during the regular season, or and like literally winning an MVP. He was the best player in the league this year. So yeah, I would take SGA. I would love to have Halliburton on my team come June. That would be. He's kind of sometimes reminds me of like a Ray Allen. Like, oh, thank God we have this guy. Maybe he didn't do so much for us in the regular season every game, but when it comes to like playoff time or the finals, oh my God, thank God we have this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, I mean the way you guys both described it is SGA is a number one and Halliburton's borderline 1, maybe 2. You know what I mean? I think that's just how it is. I mean, Siakam was big for them in the Eastern Conference Finals, so it was one of those things. But yeah, SGA is a bona fide 1. Halliburton can give you 1 moments, but majority of the time, maybe you're a guy on a team that does very well. They were both student athletes at one point, Jerry. Now we'll go to what is no longer student athletes.
There's the lob. There it is.
That's how you do it, Jerry. That is how you do it. They were once student athletes, maybe some of the last student athletes in the history of the NCAA. I teased before this that, at the beginning of the show, the word student athlete's dead. I listened to Paul Feinbein and Dan Patrick, and he said, Dan, the next time that a commissioner or a president of a school tells me a student athlete, he goes, I'm going to stop them and tell them you're an employee instead. Just say you're just to call them employees, but they don't want to do that. But last week, we had the big settlement that happened with the NCAA. So the first domino that kind of fell is the NCAA will pay $2.8 billion in back damages over the next 10 years to athletes who competed from 2016 to present day. So that's a lot of athletes. I don't know if it's going to be like one of those like, hey, did you get scammed by AT&T at one point in your life and you have a chance to get $50? I don't know if that's how it's going to be. It's kind of what it feels like. So I don't know if you already had to be in the class action, suit, or, now it's like, hey, did you compete? You can get your $25 or whatever. My question with that is like, okay, so from 2016 to present day, is there going to be another lawsuit that can be filed from 2006, 2015? So I think that's going to be the interesting moving forward with that. Seeing that this one was, kind of won by the athletes. So that's my first question with that. And now with that domino falling, there's now a new ruling. Each school can pay its athletes in a pool of up to $20.5 million per school for the 2025-2026 year. This will change depending on revenue and that certain thing for the years. But this is a pool for the entire athletic programs at each school. So this is not like Notre Dame gets $20 million for the football program, $20 million for the basketball program. This is a totality of the school. So I think that's going to be some of the misconceptions that people are going to get when they hear the $20 million. We already argued like, oh, Ohio State had a $20 million football roster. So, now the numbers are really going to get inflated. But this is for the totality of the athletic programs. I don't know, I think each school will be different. Some schools aren't going to be able to have $20.5 million, I think is the other thing. Your top of the line, probably your top, I would say 40 programs are probably going to have 20.5. Some aren't. And I think the other question with that is it going to come from the school, or are they going to continue to do their fundraising, crowdsourcing phase of Shark Tank being like, hey, sharks, you give us 5 million, you give us 5, so I think that's what's going to be interesting. I do like how there's somewhat of a cap on some things, certain things. Now, this doesn't affect the NIL part of stuff, and that's going to be interesting to how it navigates. But there is some clarity on like, hey, $20 million put into a pool, to at least pay these kids something to where legally and safely they're getting paid and we all understand it. And it's not just a random like, oh, dude, no, I got that Pringles ad going out, but it's like I never saw you in a Pringles commercial. You know what I mean? So I think there's still questions, but it is very interesting with these dominoes being affected. I know Trevor brought up like the big boys running it. It's going to continue to get that way. And with the 20.5, it may make it even worse.
It really can. All this has been so backwards. And I feel like we've stumbled into probably how this should have looked years ago. This is a settlement that athletic departments across the country, big and small, have been preparing for in some way, shape, or form, both for the cap, the 20.5 million a year, but also the back damages because some of those are coming from the schools, et cetera, blah, 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 right? Like this is something that departments have been keeping in mind, especially the big boys like we talk about, et cetera. But first of all, the NCAA realized they can't win in court anymore because their arguments were always really bad. Yeah, especially because it's like, oh yeah, we have all our conferences selling TV revenue and selling all these things for way more. We give these kids an education that is kind of going up a little bit, but like, oh, it costs $40,000 to send Brady Cook to Mizzou. He's part of the $900 million TV revenue deal. Mizzou saw like $100 million. That's a fake. Those are all fictitious numbers, obviously, but like really hard to argue that in court. Be like, yeah, give us our antitrust exemption. We're fine. Right. This started breaking down with Ed O'Bannon. You probably remember that name. He was the guy who was like, hey, I'm in the basketball game, even though I don't get any money for it. And they slowly chipped away to this point. But it all really blew up when California was going to let kids get paid for NIL. And then the NCAA was like, we can't just have one state let kids make money and then everyone else gets screwed. So then without any guidance, without any rules or anything, they're like, NIL's cool, guys. Go crazy. And that led to what we're getting to now, which is one, court cases take time. Guess what? The justice system is slow. But everything is backwards because instead of starting with a guy gets paid salary, girl gets paid salary, then make money from endorsement, it's like, oh, we make money from endorsement. Oh, now we get paid salary. Nothing else works like that. Like no other professional sports league or any league that is in the similar tier starts with your endorsement money. But they had to because that's the only way they could. Now that at least you have a baseline for what was bound to happen at some point for these kids. And my hope, and it's not a guarantee, right? This is college football. We had bagmen, for God's sake, right? Is that the NIL deals will actually turn into, like you said, Caleb, actual advertisements, actual brands working with kids, not the NIL collective for Tennessee having you sign a hat and make 5 appearances for $5 million, right? So in a way, we're kind of where we should have been, where these kids are employees. This was bound to happen when we had NIL. Agree or disagree with that if you want. But instead of it being like, yeah, I make 20 mil from endorsements, dog. One of them's from a guy who owns a tire shop. I have one tire. You know, it's like, or some crazy deal. Or the kid's getting scammed. Look at Rashada from who went to Florida, and then all the NIL deal stuff blew up. Billy Napier's not supposed to know about it. Right, their head coach at Florida, and then he moves to another school, and his career gets off to this terrible start because everyone's like, "Oh, is he money hungry?" No, he was promised X amount of money through a shady contract that the school is not supposed to know about. But the Gator Collective, keep him there, keep him to the side, can't legislate or move on. That might destroy some of those worlds, and that's probably a good thing, more than we'd like to admit.
Yeah, I'll get to Luke Hoxie's comment here. This is ridiculous. This is maybe the worst comment I've ever seen in my life. So thankful I got to watch Michigan win a legit natty. Yeah, they cheated, so you can't call that
Connor
legit.
Stallions is so happy right now.
The sport is beyond cooked. Now, I don't think the sport is beyond cooked. I think it's getting closer to where it needs to be. It's taking forever because the NCAA's view on it, and clearly the commissioners of these sports and athletic directors, clearly with Pete Pavakwa, the athletic director of Notre Dame, and Greg Sankey, the SC commissioner, playing golf with Trump, is they want to go the political route. But there's only so much like Trump as a president can do with certain things. So yeah, he may make some orders, but it's only going to last a certain amount of time. And then, so I do not think going the political route is always the smartest way, but it's the best way for, these schools to not have to worry about it themselves. I clearly, this type of stuff just sucks for, the non-revenue sports where you're kind of now devaluing them even more. And I think that's the problem. But sadly, Paul Feinbaum said this, and I don't usually agree with him, but he goes, come September when Ohio State's playing Texas, we're not going to give a shit about any of this. We're not going to, right? Because football is going to be back, and then March of Madness is going to roll around, and we're not going to care about it. We're going to talk about it in the offseason again, and then when we get back to the big moments, we're not going to care about it. But, it's just you're in a weird position if you're the NCAA because you've put yourself in this position by like not acknowledging it for so long, and now you start losing court cases, and then it speeds it back up. Same, Jerry, you had a great point with the NIL thing where it's like one school is going to do it, and then you had to like speed it all up, and then it becomes a cluster. So, yeah, I mean, do I think it's all cooked? No. Do I think we're getting some answers to some things? It just takes time. This stuff was not written out the way it should have been legitimately at the beginning. So they're trying to work through it. But yeah, it's just legit. Natty from Michigan's a joke. A joke as I go back to that. What's this guy say again? 12-team playoff is a disgrace. Just make it 64 like Martin. Okay. Yeah, that's a joke. So we can be playing. You'll play the 4 regular season games, and then we may or may not get to the championship game by the Super Bowl.
Football's king. Football's king. Football's king. It's fine. Just play more football. But I don't know. I think it is. I love your point, Caleb, about non-revenue sports in smaller schools, because depending on the fan, what school you're a fan of or conference you are in, etc., you look at this news very differently. If you are, if you're Ball State, this really can hit because you already, try your best not to pay too much for football. You're on a tight budget there, and basketball and any other non-revenue sport. It's not like Ball State's making $100 million from football tickets, right? And I don't mean to pick on Ball State. We can go Central Michigan. We can go to the Mountain West where San Jose State's not racking in cash, hand over fist, with a mid-tier season. So it is tough. I do find it interesting that, for some schools, this will be really fun, like a Villanova or like a Loyola Chicago, where it's like, oh, yeah, we can now pay X amount or whatever we want to the basketball program.
Yeah.
And then for some schools, you're going to see a real political divide on where money goes that isn't football or basketball. What do you do at South Carolina right now? You have arguably the best women's basketball program in the country, bar UConn, right? But you also have Shane Beamer and a Gamecock football team that was really hot last year, but needs investment to stay relevant. But you also have one of the best women's basketball programs in the country. How do you split that money? How do you say no to Dawn Staley, a woman who has revitalized your program? How do you say no to Shane Beamer? Like, that's another level of question. But at some schools, that's not even going to be a question. Northern Illinois is not going to be like, yeah, sorry, Thomas Hammock, we can give you $2 million, and we're going to give $500K to basketball, and we might cut a sport here or there. And it's going to get really awkward when the United States starts getting worse at the Olympics because you don't have Olympic grade swimming pools in all the Pac-12 schools anymore because you don't have a swimming program. So there are a lot of effects of this that you're going to feel way down the line. And I do think it makes the non-revenue sports way harder to compete in, not just because you have to give money, but like if you're really good at a non-revenue sport, you might give it money. That just gives you that inherent advantage against so many other schools that will not be funding those programs, or if they are funding it to the minimum. So it's not just going to hurt your football and your basketball, but your lacrosse championships are probably going to be more stale. Pick your sport. College baseball and softball will probably be more stale because if you're not competing right now, why would you keep doing it? So that's what I think is the hardest part. And to see a lot of the smaller schools, they're going to struggle. That sucks. To get the kids, especially at the upper echelon of the sport, who make millions of dollars for these schools to finally get a little piece of that instead of having the 18th new weight room at pick Big Ten school is a good thing. So it's like any complicated thing. And when you have money, there are some goods, there are some bads, there are some winners, there are some losers. Trevor's still silent. We silenced Trevor.
I agree.
He has nothing to say.
I agree. You guys are nailing it.
Well, I think the other thing too is, and this could be the end all be all plan at the top with these most powerful people, is you're slowly suffocating the smaller programs to where do they basically say, all right, you big guys go do what you want to do, and we're going to do our own thing. That's kind of what it feels like. Is it slowly working towards that? Like, Greg Sankey's on the throat of all the 100 smaller schools in the country being like, all right, you guys go do your own thing. We'll do, but they don't want to admit that either. They want the small guys to be like, look, we can't compete with this. We're not going to compete with this. You guys do your own thing. We'll go do our own thing. And they're going to be like, yeah, are you sure about this, guys? Like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, come on. Because eventually it's going to get to the top 40 or 50 teams. And that's what you're going to do. But if you do it smartly, you just do football and you leave all the other sports alone. But that won't happen either because egos and everything that goes into that. But that's just what it slowly feels like, is slowly suffocating the little man to where they'll admit, like, hey, we can't compete. You guys do your own thing. That's just the vibe I get from Luke Hoxie's going crazy over here with these comments. Best college team in the last 20 years hold that. Are you talking about like those Alabama teams, the LSU team that played? Like this, that Michigan team sucked. Free Connor Stallions. That guy's a criminal, in my opinion.
He's not in prison?
He should be locked up.
Where is he? He's like a high school coach, isn't he?
Yeah, high school coach that got like 70 scored on him, I think is what happened.
I think, that's prison then. There's people who want to talk to him. That's like mental jail, sure. The 500-page manifesto on, whatever football program isn't there yet. Give him some time. But we can move on from this because I know we still got some other things to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry, we can talk about your new job that you have.
Oh, yeah. I take on a lot of different roles in life. I try my best to be the man of the people,
Oh, this guy's stealing my line. Okay.
I work real hard here. Caleb can attest at my last job. I took on multiple roles.
That is very true.
I can to, support the people around me. And I'm now a Target employee.
Yes.
And the reason I'm a Target, and this is how I found out, is I'm sitting here right before this lovely podcast that, I look forward to every week. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting there getting some stuff for dinner tonight. It's an online order, all that, so I can pick it up, go. We can't be late here. And I'm waiting for it, and this lovely lady comes up to me. She goes, oh, yeah, I have an online order. I'm X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, me too. I also have an online order. But she's walking up to me. And again, I'm wearing this. I'm wearing a Navy midshipman Under Armour polo. Again, Free Connor Stallions, right? Wasn't he a Navy guy? There you go.
Maybe that's a new branch is Target employees.
I guess. I don't know what, this is what caught me off guard is, okay, I am wearing khakis. I feel like Jake from State Farm, but kind of backwards right now as I explain to you guys how I look with a video in front of me. But I'm wearing khakis. I'm wearing shoes, some gym shoes, Nikes. But I got this navy blue in Target where everyone wears red. If I was wearing red, let me have it. I get you. I'm like, you really mistake me? I look like a caveman with a polo on. But I did not get that person's order. I did get mine, though, most importantly. So, hey, the big red circle you see me, I have a Target on my back, and I work for them. There you go.
Yeah. What are you making for dinner?
We're making burgers, baby. We're getting some smash burgers going. We're lit.
Wow, it's big time. It's big time in St. Louis over there. Jerry, if I were you, I would have went and grabbed her order.
Just walked in. I wouldn't have been here. That's the problem.
I'd been like, excuse me, this lady asked me to get her order. Only me to get her order, so I'm gonna grab that.
And then all of the Target employees also think you work at Target.
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be great, but the problem is this is a quarter mile from my house max, and this is a place I want to come back to.
Yeah.
I don't really want to have to select a different Target because I decided to be a smart, you know what? It's still a kid joke here. And walk in the back to get someone else's order. I'm waiting for my order too. That's the thing. So if I were to go out of my way to grab this person's order, even though I don't work there, I have nothing there that can really show I work there. I can't even lie and like take my phone and like scan the codes or whatever. Like unless I'm like really thinking it through, but I'm not. I'm just standing there minding my business, like doing what I got to do. But yeah, no, I'm the newest Target employee here in St. Louis on top of my roles here at Channel 4. Both red. There you go.
Both red.
Well, Caleb,
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jerry is having smash burgers tonight. Why don't you let the folks know about what we had to eat on Memorial Day?
I will.
I finally did one.
And watch. We're gonna even tie this even better because Luke Hoxie commented here. He's an American soldier, pal, talking about Connor Stallions. Really doing that after Memorial Day. Well, he didn't die on the battlefield, so he would not be represented for Memorial Day, Luke Hoxie. So boom.
Maybe Veterans Day.
Definitely Veterans Day, but not Memorial Day, pal. You want to talk about pal? You know where he died on the battlefield of getting his booklet stolen and picked out by the NCAA. That's where he died on the battlefield.
Dang, dude.
But no, so me, Trevor, and Jonathan, we enlisted in the military meals. This is what we did. This is how we spent our Memorial Day a couple weeks ago. For people that know, I did MREs like in my college apartment. I did these videos, and they were the most disgusting things I've ever tasted in my life. Like,
I love you describing MREs like you're doing cocaine. Like, I haven't touched an MRE since I was in East Lansing, brother.
It's been a while. But so I used to do them. Jonathan used to get them for me. And what we figured out in the video is if you sell MREs, you are actually a terrorist of the United States of America. They're not for resale because it's government property. So technically, when I used to buy them from Jonathan back in the day, he's a terrorist now. So
you are. This is great to hear about a current Minneapolis cop as you accuse him of domestic terrorism.
Yeah, it definitely is terrorism. Oh, so he texted me like 3 weeks ago and was like, I'm getting a box of MREs, all new flavors. We should do a video. So that's what we did. The three of us did 4 MREs each. It's jam-packed with just goofy stuff. Some of the most disgusting food you'll ever see in your life. It's an embarrassment that's what we feed to our men and women serving and fighting for our freedoms, that we feed them this food. You learn a bunch about the military and their ways and kind of the life over there through Jonathan, because he was in the Army. We learned that you can make a bomb out of some of the things that are in there. We learned how to
counterterrorism.
We learned how to make tobacco pouches. We learned why not to eat the gum that are in the packets. We learned that Trevor and Jonathan will eat just about anything you put in front of them. The last meal that they ate is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. The most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life.
I'm still over the picture of Trevor right now. Like, how old is that picture of Trevor?
That's like high school.
Yeah, 7 or 8 years.
So it's a funny video. It's 35 minutes jam-packed of us thanking everybody that has fought for us, for our freedoms, and the opportunity we have to do this. But no, overall, disgusting.
I didn't think it was that bad.
No, Trevor thought it was great food. I thought it was disgusting.
It's very calorie dense, so I could see the practical use of it. Like, hey, you burned a lot of calories. Here's a way to get a lot of calories back very quickly. It may not be the most appetizing way to get calories back, but I see it being very effective, which is what our military is about, baby. We're Eagles.
The United States military. We're effective.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's it. No, I figured out why we're like the most feared nation in the world is because our men and women eat these meals.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anybody else would eat these meals. They are disgusting. We feed our men and women dog and cat food, literally.
Yeah, there was some of it that was very cat food-esque. But I will tell you, I went kayaking for about 6 hours after this, and I was unstoppable.
You guys are learning more and more why they provided cigarettes as well.
It's like I said, it's a great video. It's funny. You do get, like I said, you do get a lot of insights of kind of the military ways over there. Jonathan takes us through some of the ways and some of the things and like his life experience and like how to kind of try and live somewhat of a life over there outside of fighting. But no, it's a funny video. Like I said, the last meal that those two ate is disgusting. And yeah, it was one of those goofy moments for us just to be idiots for 35 minutes. And no, it was pretty good. Luke Hoxie here. Caleb, would you rather eat an MRE or a banana? I'd rather eat an MRE. And that's saying a lot.
It's
for
so
bananas.
insane.
That is
my
saying
God.
a lot because there were some of those MREs that he also refused to eat.
I viewed it as if it's not in front of me, I'm not eating it. If I didn't open the package and it wasn't my MRE, I'm not eating it.
I tried everything. I tried everything of everyone.
Trev, man of the people. That's what I'm hearing.
Right.
I'm fine. I'm clearly not made out for war, and I'm fine with that.
This is really hurting your campaign for whatever office you're going to run for last episode.
No, I think it's
Real
helping
bad.
because I'm truthful. I'm not sitting up here being like, I could fight. No, I can't. I clearly figured that out by just trying the meals.
I couldn't fight, but I could eat everybody's food.
I know that. That's it. There's nothing else you can say.
I'm really good at that.
Yeah, Trevor's going to go over there and just eat your food.
Yeah, they're like, we're starving to death.
Nope, one guy ate it all. So, no, that's the video. It'll be out tomorrow. It's like I said, it's goofy, it's funny, and you have to watch it through to watch their disgusting meal that they ate at the end.
Well, you know Trevor's slogan as he runs for office: "No meals left behind."
No meals left behind, baby.
What a mess. But that's going to do it for this week's video. We'll be back Sunday next week, which will be U.S. Open Sunday. So we will talk about that. Will Scotty win another major or will somebody else? Who knows? NBA Finals will be in the thick of it. NHL Stanley Cup Final will be in the thick of it. So a lot to talk about, but we will be back next week. Thanks for watching.